Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
All right, welcome and thank you for joining us at the Retro Zoo Super Show. I am one of your hosts, Kai.
And I'm Steven.
Steven, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, but I
Cool.
can hear myself after everything I say.
Really, again?
Yep.
Darn.
Wait. Now it's gone.
Okay, I think it's part of your imagination now.
Well, I do have a very vivid imagination. So I take that as a compliment, actually.
Oh goodness. Well, yeah. We'll have to research that more and figure out what's going on there. But thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully, we won't be echoing too much as we go. At least for the audience. Steven, I don't care as much about, but for the audience.
Yeah.
We are
greater
produced.
good.
Right. We are produced, as always, by Drum. Drum, how are you doing today?
I am functioning normally.
Very good, very good. So, we actually have a lot to talk about today. There has been actually a lot of retro gaming news that comes out this week.
Oh.
Which is unusual because you kind of one of the reasons that we picked the topic of retro gaming is so that we didn't have to keep up with the news, right?
Right, exactly.
We don't have to buy any new games. We don't have to like keep our eye on the gaming websites to see what's new, what's happening, what's being announced. We don't care.
Retro gaming news is generally old news.
Right, yes. Hey, it's like the stuff you see on Facebook that hey, on this day 23 years ago, such and such game was released, or
right.
My favorite are like the really early Nintendo games where we're not even really sure what day it was released because it was just kind of before Sonic 2, the habit was just to ship games. And whenever they reached the store, that's their release date. which of course was very inconsistent. They weren't like overnighting these games. But they put up these announcements that 30 years ago today. It's like, you don't know that. But yeah, that's kind of the news that we deal with. But there is a lot of fun news. First of all, we have a new Super Mario Brothers speedrun record.
Really?
And this one is a milestone. So, one of the players who has for quite some time now been one of the just very, very good and very noteworthy Mario Brothers players is Cosmic, and he's an exceptionally good player.
Well, with a name like Cosmic, you better be an exceptionally good player.
What are you doing over there?
Sorry, my chair was squeaking.
It wasn't a squeak. It sounded like it just like collapsed.
It may have.
Gosh.
Sorry.
Oh goodness. Well, Cosmic actually broke the record twice in one night.
Whoa.
But the reason that we're talking about it, and like, I mean, as much as I love speedrunning, we don't talk about all of the records being broken all the time, because this is there's so many games and there's so many records. They're being broken fairly often. But we do bring up this one because, first of all, it's kind of, I mean, this is the gold standard for speedrun records. Super Mario Brothers any percent is the big one, if there is a big one. And I mean, I think this is kind of the one that more people pay attention to than anybody else. And so that's one reason we bring it up. But the second reason is because after quite some time of trying, and after many people saying it was impossible, Cosmic got the record under 4 minutes and 56 seconds. It was, in fact, 4 minutes 55 seconds and 913 milliseconds.
Whoa.
So, as just as a comparison, the TAS run. Now, TAS, for those who aren't familiar, that's the tool-assisted speedrun. That's when you program the computer to run the game at just the absolute optimal pace. The TAS record that Happy Lee did, I think quite some time ago, is 4 minutes 55 seconds, 55.16 seconds. So Cosmic is now less than 1 second behind the TAS. And I mean, this was a really huge milestone. Like I said, a lot of people did not even think that this was possible. But it's an incredible achievement. And so, for those who are not familiar with the Mario Brothers speedrun, when you watch it, you're gonna be confused at points, because he literally jumps through walls. He jumps through the piranha plants that try to bite him. He jumps through flagpoles. And, well, the flagpole gets you. He's not actually jumping through the flagpole, but the little block at the base of the flagpole, he clips into that block in a couple of worlds and ends the level inside the block by the flagpole. It's weird, but when you see it, you're gonna go, wait, what just happened there? But these are various glitches that have been found over the years, and it takes a lot of talent to be able to string those glitches together into a viable run and to get a score like this. And so congratulations, Cosmic. This is great.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, for sure. Congratulations are in order. But my question is how can he be so close to the TAS? How can he be so close? And it makes me wonder if he isn't himself the ghost in the shell. If the TAS is the shell, then Cosmic is the ghost. And we're actually on the verge of understanding what that really means.
So what you're saying is you believe that when the RTA score, which is the human score, and the task score become the same, then that will cause the whole cybernetic system that has entrapped us all to explode from the inside out and open our minds to possibilities and worlds that we never imagined would occur.
Sort of. I was thinking more though that what it would mean is if once the human playing and the TAS reach that the same level, like when they become the same, then that individual player, in this case, if it were to be Cosmic, he would represent the ghost in the shell for that particular program, for that game. So when the game becomes sentient later, then we would know whose spirit was embedded in it.
Oh,
we know
I
it would
see.
be the spirit of Cosmic.
Yeah.
And that it, because the
Cosmic
game
and the
first
game will become one.
recognized it recognized its owner. It's defeater, it's conqueror. And in a sense, that can be done with every program and every game, and that you'll have these. But this is a theory of how the ghost actually comes into the show. I'm just saying. Maybe that's a little too much, giving Cosmic a little too much credit. But let's get him to compete with the TAS. And if you surpass the TAS, I don't know what to say about that. That might be the apocalypse.
Well, yeah.
How could you surpass the TAS?
Well,
In that
I mean that always is possible if a glitch is discovered that the TAS did not know about. If there's some way that is discovered where a human can take a couple of seconds off this record that was not in the TAS. Obviously, we would do a new TAS, but
right.
But that would be the case where that would happen.
I see.
But
that takes a lot of profundity away from what I was saying, though, so I'm going to disregard it.
Sorry. Yeah. Also, I think just right off the top of my head, I know that the RTA time and the TAS time for, oh my goodness, what's the name of that game?
Duck Hunt?
Duck Hunt, no.
I don't know.
Dragster.
That was close.
The TAS and the RTA on Dragster are the same time, I think.
So then we just have to find out who the RTA is, and then we'll know who the ghost in the shell is.
Well, there's several.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dragster is a special case because we know what the apps. It's a 5-second game, and so we know what the absolute fastest time is, and several people have achieved that time.
Okay, that's not impressive.
Okay, you know what? Let's just throw all of that out and Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. I'm satisfied. Yes. I think that's a good analysis. Ghost in the Shell. If anybody ever asks a question, you can just drop that. Well, we're not sure, but Ghost in the Shell.
Right. Oh, goodness. Well, on to our second piece of news. So
we have more news?
Yes, we have 3 pieces of news.
More old news?
More old news. Okay, so we've had like the classic, the NES Classic and the SNES Classic have come out. That were, mini versions of the original, but with with several games preloaded onto them. So one new system like this was officially announced, and there's speculations about another one. But the one that has been officially announced is the PlayStation Classic, and that will be out this year for Christmas. And it's going to feature. It's going to come with 20 games from the classic, PlayStation 1 days. Some of those games were going to include Final Fantasy VII, Tekken 3, Wild Arms. We don't have a complete list of games yet, but 20 classic PlayStation games. That's really promising, and that's going to be released in time for Christmas, and so that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, Christmas.
Yeah. So I didn't play a ton on my PlayStation, and I certainly played the Final Fantasy games.
At least you had a PlayStation.
What?
I said, at least you had a PlayStation.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
I was too poor to have a PlayStation.
Oh, this whole story took a downer right there, didn't it? Goodness.
Sorry. Keep going.
We're trying to be upbeat, classic games. Okay, so now this is your chance to play some of this stuff if you want to.
You invite me over?
Well, I can't afford one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think.
But like Wild Arms is one that I've wanted to play and I have not, and so that might be a good one to get. I've certainly played Final Fantasy VII probably a couple of times, and so I'm very interested to see what all is going to be on this. The one though that is unofficial is being speculated upon because Nintendo set up a trademark, and I think it was in Europe. I don't have the story in front of me. That's something I should have done. Reporting news. I'm just not used to news, and so it's like, I forgot what to do for a minute there. But they did register a trademark somewhere for the N64 Classic. And so that has set the retro gaming world abuzz. Of course, as well as the NES Classic and the SNES Classic has done, a lot of us has been speculating they're not going to stop here. We kind of wondered if it was going to be Game Boy Classic next, which I think would be a lot of fun. But they did at least file for that trademark. Doesn't mean they're doing it, but it does mean that, the thought has at least crossed their mind.
Huh. So they want to cover their bases.
Possibly, or possibly they're, working toward announcing it. I don't know. Or they're working on it. Or they just want to mess with us because they're Nintendo and they can. Why not? Right.
There's nothing to lose. In fact, it keeps people checking the news about Nintendo if you're not sure what they're going to do.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So that's kind of what's been going on in the world of retro gaming. What have you been up to?
Not a lot. I actually was on Twitch a little bit earlier tonight. And how sometimes on Twitch they recommend something for you to watch.
Yeah.
And so it was this virtual reality first person shooter esport tournament kind of thing. And it was pretty cool, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, these guys are, they're chubby kids up on the stage, with their invisible guns that they're holding with their big masks, clunky masks. But you see what they're doing in the game. They're like throwing grenades and shooting their machine guns and stuff. It was pretty cool. And it I've played a virtual reality game at a DreamHack one year, and it kind of made me feel a little nauseous. And I think that's kind of a common thing with virtual reality is that there's it's kind of a sickness associated with movement, because your brain is like, we're moving in the game, but my body doesn't feel movement. So there's something is amiss. It's like car sickness.
Yeah.
And if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, you can get sick. But so part of me was wondering, as I was watching these kids play, like, they're not like puking all over. I'm surprised they're not throwing up everywhere. But it was really cool, and it was interesting, to see I really enjoy the polished aspect of esports, and seeing, and Twitch has just done such an amazing job of making it so much more accessible and giving a platform for everybody to, this was obviously, it was a small event or a smallish event, but there was still, they had commentators, and it was pretty polished for what seemed like a pretty new venture, but it was VR. I forgot, VR League, I think is what it was called, and it was pretty cool, and I was impressed, and it kind of pricks. It's called the VR Challenger. That's VR League. It's a channel on Twitch. But anyway, it was. It's cool, and it of course, I'm thinking as a CS:GO player, it's like, when can they make? Because the graphics, the interface it doesn't look as good as some of the other first-person shooters that are out there. So I was kind of wondering when they'll be able to do this with some of the more popular first-person shooters. But anyway, so that's kind of what I was doing, playing around on Twitch a little bit, and I'm ever amazed that it's diversity, yet it's and its ability to just combine so many genres.
Yeah. I've been. I mean, one thing, starting to stream on Twitch, I've been constantly amazed at is the level of technology at my fingertips. Most of which gotten for free. To make things look really cool and to let you stream just very cool stuff very easily. And it's been just really kind of astonishing the way technology has progressed like that. It's like, I don't know, have you ever run across these like independent newscasts on YouTube and stuff, and on Twitch?
So I watch a StarCraft news cast on Twitch.
Well, StarCraft news, real news, it's basically the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, actually, I would say StarCraft news is much more enlightening and important than real news is these days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when
it's the Roman Empire.
Well, I ran across one of these guys during kind of a big news event that was happening the other day, and that some craziness was going on. We were all trying to figure out. So I ran across this guy, and totally doing like this newscast on his own live feed through, in this case it was YouTube, but just the look of his feed, probably using the same type of programs that I'm using to run my feed, is making this look totally like a legit newscast. And I didn't mean legit to be derogatory on that term. He was actually doing a pretty good job of it. But this was kind of his job. He set up this independent newscast, and something happens, he gets on, and has the green screen behind him that has all the stories popping up, and he's doing this by himself. And it's just amazing that this technology that used to be reserved for networks and stuff, you can just download it with the click of a mouse, not even having to pay for it.
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of like the now you kind of everybody there's an interesting connection that could be made there. It's like, wait a second, these guys on the cable news networks are actually just people using basic software. They might as well just be some Joe Schmo in their basement, and the integrity is about the same. It's like, and probably less, it's like, who is this person, that's telling me what I should know about anything?
Right.
which is, I think there's wisdom in a multitude of informants. So
Yes.
if you're looking for news, then looking around in many different places is probably wise, which is interesting because yes, I've seen what you're talking about. I've seen these independent newscasters, and it is an interesting phenomenon because they look very professional. And you're right. The material, the software is out there. It's free or it's cheap or they just know how to use it, and so they can make their show look pretty good, whether or not what they're saying is, has it. That's up for the viewer to determine.
Sure.
But yeah, no.
And there's a sliding scale on that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the news is like, okay, but with the whole Rome theme that I kind of hinted at earlier, it's like,
yeah,
who needs the news when we have esports and Twitch and basically can watch? I mean, I guess I'm not as. I mean, yes, I think any kind, just like.
For this show to work,
kind of,
you're going to need to finish at least one of the sentences you start.
Okay, yes, no. Well, I'm having multiple thoughts. That kind of, they're all.
Oh, that always confuses you. Yeah.
On a nexus of genius, but no. So what I'm thinking is, okay, recording artists. What happened to them after Napster? After people realized, wait a second, I can download their music for free. Well, they stopped making a ton of money. People stopped wanting to be rock stars. Because anybody can be a rock star, and then also you're not going to make as much money anyway. So I think it'll happen to news, and I think it's happening to sports. It's like, who needs these? We're witnessing, our society, our culture is witnessing, the world is witnessing a decentralization of everything. Everything. I was going to say entertainment, but it's not just entertainment. It will be the
really
news.
Isn't.
It will be sport. It will be entertainment, but it will be everything. Education is coming. Everything is on the chopping block. Everybody that thought that they could monopolize information or anything that you can learn from the computer or watch on the computer, guess what? You're on the chopping block. So sell your stocks, invest in something tangible like gold, or
the views expressed
Bitcoin.
by the show do not constitute actual financial advice. But
thanks for pointing that out. But you wouldn't be amiss for following it.
Wow. No, and I mean, even in the world of education, you've got. I mean, I know more and more people who are the skills they're actually using in their day-to-day life and to get things going are more from Skillshare than the traditional forms of education. And so yeah, I actually just took a class on a different website, but it was kind of the same type of idea as Skillshare. It's you need to learn a topic and you get on and learn it. And especially when, college and high school and stuff are very rarely, unless you are getting into a particular field, they're very rarely training you for a job.
Right.
And so yeah, these types of websites are coming up to fill that gap. It's kind of cool.
Well, it's like, you're a kid. Now we're way off topic now, but you're a kid. You're interested in something. We haven't even
started the topic. That's
well, then maybe I should stop. But let me just finish this thought. You're a kid. You want to learn something. Well, just type it into Google or just look it up on the internet, and you'll figure it out. Whereas before you used to have to ask your parents to go get you a book from the library, or you had to wait on all this stuff, and now it's like, boom, you want it, you can have it. And of course that's bred an entire culture of instant gratification and all this other stuff. But I read an article today, or saw. I should never say I read an article because I very rarely read an article. I read a headline today that said, offices prepare, like Generation Z is coming, and it's funny because I interact with Generation Z, which is, I guess, it's the post-millennial, whatever. That sounds theological. It's the generation after the millennials. It's the people that grew up with supercomputers in hand. The people that grew up with a smartphone. Like I didn't get a smartphone until I was an adult, and it was kind of turned off by it, to be honest. Like, was kind of like, whoa, this is, you didn't know. I was always behind. There was always somebody that was more advanced learning, knew all the tricks already. So there was no competition there. I was always kind of behind the cutting edge or whatever. And so, but we're approaching a generation of people that have grown up with a supercomputer in their hands. Guess what? Anything that they ever wanted to know, they can know.
Yeah.
As a kid, and you think about it, the viability of your mind as a child or a young adult, you can do so much more. You're not limited by experience to say, well, I know how this road is going to end, and so I'm just not going to put myself out there to learn this. That's like, you're a kid. Might as well learn it, And so if you have a supercomputer at your fingertips, guess what? It's going to be a heck of a lot easier. And so I think the dynamic of the workplace, I think entertainment, these kids are growing up on Twitch. I don't know. I'm about to freak out right now. I'm about to have like a whole meltdown about how everything is going to change, and you better have your eggs in the right basket. And guess what, folks? The Retro Zoo Super Show has his eggs in the right basket. Kai is on Twitch. He's podcasting. We're, we're safe. So are you? That's the question here, ladies and gentlemen. Are you safe?
Are you safe?
Are you living a dream? Do you think this is all going to go away? Because you're wrong. It's not. This is the future. Embrace it. Unless you're waiting for like an electromagnetic storm as a weapon or as like a natural phenomenon from the sun, you're in trouble. And if that happens, we'll all be in trouble and you'll be the winner. But you know what? I think we'll all be the losers, actually, including you, because you'll lose your next generation of people who won't know how to exist without technology. Anyway, I digress.
Well, that's the news.
Old news.
All the old news right there. And a warning about your future. If you don't follow our advice, you will lose everything.
Prophecy.
And with that, we're going to go to our commercial break. So, all right, we will be right back because we've got to talk about some Zelda 2.
Yes.
Hey, this is Phil from Phil's Gaming Emporium, philsgamingemporium.com. With all this talk about Zelda 2, I gotta tell you, I've caught the fever. I am ready to play this game. I'm ready to get you your hands on this game right now. This is such a classic. They made it out of solid gold. That's right. They didn't use plastic. They used solid gold. And so, as a special, if you buy it from us, you're just going to pay the going rate for the gold. You're not even going to pay for the amazing game that's inside. So you get the gold, you get the game for free. What a deal. So, the game weighs about 5 ounces. We multiply that by the going rate for gold today, and you can have your hands on this game made of solid gold. Play it tonight for $1,200. philsgamingemporium.com. We'll see you there.
Back.
Okay, and we are back. So, Zelda 2. First of all, I got to mention that if you are catching this as we're releasing it on Friday morning, then tomorrow morning on Saturday will be hopefully my final chapter in the Zelda 2 series on Twitch, twitch.tv/technofunkboy. I've been playing it on Saturday mornings throughout September, and we are down to the final palace, and so really excited about that. But we are going to get a little bit into, just just more of the production of the game. In the last couple episodes, we've talked about the music as well as the lore, but now we want to get into the actual production of the game. So, guess we should get going.
Okay, let's go. I want to hear all about it.
All right, so while this is the third episode in our Zelda series, you certainly don't have to have listened to the prior two in order to catch up with us here. And in fact, we're finally going to start talking about the actual production of the game and what makes this game unique. And by the way, those things that make the game unique are also the things that make it kind of the black sheep of the series. The first thing that we should note is that while we get into Zelda timelines and alternate universes and that sort of thing all the time, this one is a true sequel to the first game. And that's really unusual in Zelda games. Zelda games have gotten the reputation of, every adventure you're a new Link and you have a new Zelda and, pretty much the same Ganon, but still, it's another generation, it's another time, and things are different than the last time because so much time has gone by, and that's kind of where you kick off. Well, this one kicks off after the first game, and in fact, I was so thrilled about this because, growing up with these sequels, and you always kind of wonder, it's like Samus in Metroid, it's like, why did you not keep all the great equipment that you gained in the prior installment of the series? And it's always been something I've wondered about, but in this game you actually do. The sword you have at the beginning of the game is the magic sword from Zelda 1. And in fact, you don't upgrade that sword. You do not get a better sword in the entire game. What you do to get stronger is Link gets stronger and gains more abilities in swordplay. And it's the same thing with armor. You don't get new rings, that to make your armor better. You get stronger yourself. I think that's fascinating. And so the focus is now turning not toward the acquisition of items, but toward growing in strength yourself. And that is reflected in so many different ways in the game. And that's one of the things that makes this game so different than everything else. All right, so getting into production a little bit. Now, Miyamoto, the just great creator of so many classics, like Super Mario Brothers, like Donkey Kong, like the original Legend of Zelda, he produced the game, and he gave the game to Tadashi Sugiyama to direct it. And we talked about a little bit about the music in a previous episode, so we won't retread that very much. But Sugiyama was given some very specific instructions. It came down from Miyamoto himself that he wanted this different. He wanted some side-scrolling, platformer elements to it. And so Miyamoto himself had this vision of a very, very different sequel. And that in and of itself was not that unusual. Especially in this early age, there were a lot of times like Mega Man that the sequel was just so closely tied to the original game, but there were a lot of games where that was not the case. In America, we saw Mario go through much more changes than like Japan did. In Japan, the Lost Levels Mario 2 was really very close to the original Mario, down to the same sprites and all. But there's a huge jump from that to Mario 3. In America, almost everybody knows the story. We'll go into the story later, but they didn't want to release their Mario 2 for us. And so they took a different game, Doki Doki Panic, and kind of reskinned it and updated a little bit and gave that as Mario 2. But you think about the first 6 Super Mario games, and how different each of them were. Even like between 1 and 3, where you have 8 worlds, each with kind of a Koopa boss, even though that was played out differently. The expansion of the worlds, the maps, the different items, the mini bosses, the airships, the different power-ups, just the way the screen looked, the way the levels looked, the way they played, with not just left to right scrolling, but scrolling all over the place. Auto-scrollers, that game had a lot of auto-scrollers, and, as someone who likes speed running, we don't like auto-scrollers, but that put this whole additional element into the game. And then you jump to Mario World, and it's all of that amplified, with yet more power-ups. The look, the feel of it is still different. Yoshi's Island just took the series into a complete left turn that was magnificent. And then we get into 3D. Now, now it's like, now we're used to the Mario formula, because there are a lot of common elements to all of these games, but it's been more so since we hit 3D that Mario formula has really kind of solidified, and it's really now about kind of the beauty of the levels and the level designs themselves, and that's making these games different and new. But it was kind of the same way with Zelda. It's like there was no reason at the time to expect Zelda 2 to be exactly like Zelda 1. And Zelda 2 took a complete left turn from the original Zelda. And we see it right away. Like from the first screen, which is absolutely brilliant. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But we go in, and the approach is different. They're really trying to make a different sort of adventure that's very much going to distinguish it from the first game. So let's get into that. The very first scene. The first thing you see is you are in a palace. You are beside the bed where the very ancient Princess Zelda sleeps, trapped by just an exceedingly old magic spell, and you are about to set off. And then you can go either left or right. So right away the game is teaching you something about itself. There's no enemies in here, and this is important, but the room is very, very big. You don't go to the edge of the screen and just leave. You keep walking for a while. And there's a reason for that. The game is teaching you, okay, this is how fast you're moving, this is how you're moving. The room is big. Like if you were just going to the edge of the screen, you'd probably just walk it. But since you're not, you start playing around, and you see how the jump feels, and you see how the attack feels, and you can kind of get used to it, kind of as it were, feel the weight of that sword, and you might even start noticing that he's carrying the shield with him. That room is giving you a playground in which to practice being Link, because Link is different. The first Zelda, Link didn't jump. He had one button to swing his sword and the other button to use his item. In this case, we're not dealing with really those items much anymore. You're swinging your sword and you're jumping. And then you might in there learn how to crouch. You might learn how to do other stuff. But that's kind of where you are in that room. We find this in Zelda 1 as well. The first screen you're on does not have any enemies. And when you go down and get the sword and you come back out, you are still on that first screen that does not have any enemies. And that's your playground. That's how you kind of start getting used to stuff. And that was really important. It's just not being thrown right into it, but giving you a chance to just kind of start getting used to how does this feel? How is this going to go is really great. But it's not more than one room. And that's also important because what it's going to teach you right away is that this is not simply a side-scrolling game. When you walk out of the palace, now you're in an overworld map. And it's top down again. Now this looks more familiar like Zelda. And if we had started on that screen, immediately we would have gone, okay, Legend of Zelda, let's get going. And then you would have entered a battle and you would have been totally just caught unaware and really frustrated. But because it started you in the unfamiliar, in a safe place, that is letting you get to know what's going on in this world. You get to the overworld map and you can go in really 3 cardinal directions from there. Now there's a road that's kind of hinting to where you need to go first, but you don't have to follow that road. But the road is going to lead you to your first town. And so already we're just introducing all this new stuff into the player. First of all, we've gotten the side-scrolling action. We've gotten the overworld top-down map, and now we've got towns, and towns are new to Zelda II. If you stayed on the road, it was just a clear shot to the town. But if you got off the road, all of a sudden these like shadowy creatures appear on the road and might try to chase you. And if they catch you, you get into a random battle. And so while the JRPG Dragon Quest player is used to random battles, they're not quite like this. You have a chance, because you can see them, to get out of the way of them, to dodge them completely, or at very least get yourself on a square that's going to be more favorable to you. Because whatever square you're on is the type of terrain you fight on. If you're on a road, well, the roads are safe. So even if you get hit, you end up on a safe screen again. But the plains are going to be easier than the forest, and the swamps are worse still. And that's kind of how you can strategically play your random battles, or avoid them altogether if you can try to stay on the roads or dodge the enemies. Already, you've barely reached town number 1, and the game has very cleverly introduced you to a lot of elements that you're going to need to understand to progress any further. It's already laid that foundation on you. Now, it should be noted that the road kind of goes out of the way to the town, and so you're very tempted to go through the forest to get to the town because you can see it there, and it's much shorter that way. And that's going to get you that random battle. And so the game is tempting you along, kind of pulling you along, going, okay, let me show you what we're doing here with stuff like that. It's tempting you off the road very early in the game so that so that you're going to see what to expect in the future. So I kind of just hit some of the new things that this game introduces. And I mean, besides the side-scrolling action, which is, just a massive change, we have some things that we would consider kind of obvious, like towns, NPCs in the towns, like useful NPCs, it's like, there are NPCs in Legend of Zelda, and they're kind of weird and cryptic, and they live in caves, but there's not just the normal person walking through town or coming out of their house or that sort of thing. The fact that you gain spells and sword techniques from learning from skilled people in town and not gathering items in dungeons. I mean, you do gather items, but we're going to get to that a little bit. But that's how you increase your arsenal, is by basically sitting at the feet of masters and having them teach you. That's really intriguing to me. The game is about the development of Link. It's not about him collecting, items that's going to help him on his way. Everything you use in battle is not coming from the item itself. It's coming from what you have learned personally. So magic is not, it's not, hey, I found a magic wand and I'm going to shoot it. Magic is something you learn from wise men in towns. Your sword techniques is not something that some item you find in the dungeon. It's something you learn from fighting masters in town. The items that you actually get in the dungeon are mostly very passive. Now, the hammer you can use in the field, and the whistle you can use in the field. Neither one of them can you use in battle. You use them in the field. But most of them are very passive. So when you get the candle, you don't ever use the candle. It's just the caves go from dark to being bright. That's the difference. And it's the same over and over again with the items that you get. They change the environment around you, but you don't actively use them. What you're actively going to use is how you progressed so far in the game. So, with that being the theme, with Link's development being the theme, they've also added some RPG elements. And Miyamoto is famous for not being overly fond of RPGs because he wants his games to be skill-based. Like, the player needs to learn how to do better at my game, not just level themselves up until they can beat it. But this game does introduce some RPG elements as Link gets more experience. As he learns better how to fight, he does gain levels like that. The battle themselves is very, very new because now, in the original Zelda, you did learn patterns and you learned how enemies fought, and there were some enemies with shields and such. But you kind of figured out how they did it. That part of the game is really emphasized in Adventure of Link. It's much more about dueling. It's much more about facing off with an enemy. Very often both y'all are carrying a shield, or, they've got some sort of weapon that's going to knock you back. And you getting in there close enough while blocking their attacks to let them have it. And how do you let them have it? The Iron Knuckles being the very famous bad guy. When you first face off with him, it feels like you cannot hit this guy. He's so quick with his shield. He's so good with his shield. And he just lays waste to you. It's about learning how to fight with a sword in this game. Another element that's added is, as I mentioned before, the magic. This is, this Link in A Legend of Zelda did not know magic spells. It's notable that in A Link to the Past, Zelda III, he doesn't know magic spells either. He gains items that have magical powers, but he does not know spells. This Link does know spells and can cast them in battles. A huge difference is the bad guy. Now, there's always the threat of Ganon coming back. That's that really cryptic and scary game over screen, which is just great. I mean, that image of Ganon is just amazing, and frightening. The meaning, I mean, this game has, Ganon is not in this game, but he appears in the game over screen with the message, the return of Ganon. So Ganon is looming over this game. What's happening is Ganon's minions are trying to revive Ganon, but they need your blood to do it. They need to kill you. If they can kill you, then they can revive Ganon. But Ganon is not the villain of the game. Now this really shouldn't surprise us. Ganon has not been established as the great villain of Hyrule for time, going infinitely back and forward. He's just, he was just the villain of game number 1. It's really A Link to the Past that establishes Ganon as really the villain of the ages. But even there in A Link to the Past, you'll remember that for most of the game, you thought Aghanim was the villain, unless you knew better, right? But Aghanim was set up to be the villain of that game until the very, very end, when you realize that the kind of the spirit of Ganon has been haunting him the entire time. So these are all things that were just like a huge departure from Zelda 1. But then A Link to the Past comes out, and this is what kind of establishes the game as the black sheep of the family. And it seems clear that Nintendo felt like they needed to have a return to original Legend of Zelda when they came to A Link to the Past, because that's exactly what we got. We returned to the top down. Link can't jump anymore, except to jump down cliffs or drop offs. Certainly the world was bigger. The world had more detail. It was prettier. It was on the SNES, not the NES. It was more full, but it was a direct successor of The Legend of Zelda, not a direct successor to Link to the Past. We have elements from A Link to the Past that carry on, but they're very few and far between. Like I said, a Link in A Link to the Past can use magic, but it's only through items, which is exactly what it was in Zelda 1. Magic is possible, but not of your own. You have some elements like the town, the fact that there are towns. Like Kakariko Village did not exist in Zelda 1. No village existed in Zelda 1. As far as we knew, the inhabitants of this land all lived in caves and went crazy and just spouted nonsense. We don't know. But Zelda 2 really, really kind of expanded the world and made it cohesive and made it feel like this is a real place that, people really live in, that they're not all hermits. They're actually walking in and out of their houses. They're thirsty. They lose things. They're, going about their day. And so that is brought over. But honestly, that even without Zelda 2, that's such a natural progression that I would, as much as I love Zelda 2 and I'd love to credit them for more, I don't think that Kakariko Village would not exist if Zelda 2 hadn't established towns. There are little tributes paid to Zelda 2 along the way. Dark Link first appears in Zelda 2, and he does appear in later games. The town names of in Zelda 2 are reused as sages in a future game, a game that precedes Zelda 2 in chronology. So, these towns were actually named after them, not the other way around, which is kind of a really cool touch. But it really feels like, besides these little elements like that and, a little swordplay here and there, Zelda 2 is largely, that forgotten black sheep of the family that doesn't seem to be acknowledged. There are games that were really influenced by Zelda 2. Faxanadu is one of the more important ones. It as a game, it sold really well, and I think it has been very influential. It just really hasn't had that big of an impact on Zelda, which is weird. But I guess here in America, we kind of get that same feeling where, a lot of us would really love to see like a sequel to Mario 2. And, okay, so Shy Guys are used here and there, but for the most part, that game had a huge impact on the series. that's kind of understandable since in Japan it was not Mario 2 to begin with, while this one was Zelda 2. But something about this game, even though it sold quite well, even though it reviewed quite well, something about this game was such that Nintendo felt like they needed to go back to the original. I remember a lot of this game being frustrating. You know, some of the clues are cryptic, not like Castlevania 2 cryptic, but they are cryptic. And, you know, it was always healthy to have the power with you, Nintendo power, when trying to face off with this game. There's some stuff in there that can be pretty obtuse, but all in all, it is something that you can puzzle together, and probably puzzle together quite a bit easier than Legend of Zelda 1, where, at the end of the day in Zelda 1, realistically, you were going screen to screen, burning every single bush and bombing every single wall. And that's how you spent a ton of your time in Zelda 1. You don't have to do that here. You don't have to do that kind of puzzling. There are a few things that are hidden. There are a few things that you've got to work out. But for the most part, what you need to do is to make Link stronger. And that means not only learn the things that the game, is giving to Link through the characters, through the levels, but also you as a player being able to control him better, to make you as a player good enough to face the challenges that come. And I have to tell you, as someone who's been playing it for several weeks now and really getting into it, when you do have all of that strength in game and you're able to use it on the controller, there are few games as satisfying to play. Just the way he moves, the way he fights, that downward thrust is one of the best feelings in a game that I've had for a long time. It feels good doing the downward thrust on an enemy, hopping over him, bouncing off of his head with your, sword coming down. And when that hits, it's just satisfying. And so I ran across a couple of posts as I was going, it's like, hey, do you think there will ever be like a Zelda 2, a sequel to Zelda 2? Well, I would seriously doubt it. They have their formula now and it's working quite well. Breath of the Wild's most recent chapter and it seems like most everybody is exceedingly satisfied with that game, that it's a lot of fun. And so I don't think they're going to go back to the drawing board when they got something that's working. It's kind of the same way with Mario. But at the same time, while it's probably not going to ever be the most influential game in the series, I'm happy when it's getting attention, because it really is just a great game. The one element I really wish they would pick up, and we talked about this last week, it's like, I wish they would pick up that plot with the ancient prince who trusted that stupid magician and that put Zelda to sleep. There's so much untold there. And I think that would be really cool to explore more, but hopefully at some point we pick up that particular thread. But in the meantime, the one great thing about the legacy of this game is that it gets reissued everywhere, and so it's quite easy to find on even the modern systems. They offer it in numerous places, including the the NES Classic. And so this game is very easy to find. It's very easy to get into, and so I've been very happy that I've dived back into this game after playing it almost none as a kid, and so finally kind of getting through it. I've been very happy with it, and that is all the time we have for today.
I was just getting into it.
Yes, we will be back next week with a little bit more on Zelda. I want to give my final impressions of the game, and get more into what I think makes the game really interesting and unique. And so we will dive more into that next week. So more Zelda 2 to come. But
all right.
In the meantime, I really do appreciate you joining us. And one thing I'd like y'all to do, we just actually started a Discord server. For those of y'all who are not familiar with Discord, it's kind of like a chat and voice
where everybody argues because it's called Discord.
Yes, but it is designed specifically for gamers, and so you can actually join us there for discussion on retro games, about the podcast, about gaming music, and I hope we're going to try to set this up so that we can start broadcasting our recordings of this show live on the Discord server. We're going to try to hook it up where we can do it both on Twitch and Discord. And so if you're there while we're recording, you can sneak in and listen to the show as we're recording it, and get it without all the final touches and editing that we do later.
Yeah, you might get some Easter eggs and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we do hope that you will check that out. It's going to be links going to be in the show notes, or you can find our Facebook page. It's going to right at the top of our Facebook page. There's now a link to the Discord server, and so please do join us there. It's brand new, so there's almost no one there at the moment, and so you can get in on the ground floor before it gets expensive. It's free. It's not going to be ever cost anything, but but we really do appreciate you joining us. Please do check that out, and otherwise, I hope y'all have a great day.
Yes.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and unless you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.